Zoza Shongwe to weigh in on what we are seeing. Prince Shongwe, thank you very much for joining us. Just take us into your confidence about what we have observed in the past hour or so, where the preparations to transport the mortal remains of the late Queen Regent QueenMantfombiDlaminiZulu to take her all the way to KwaNongoma, and that's where she is going to be laid to rest. What we are seeing right now, how would you describe them in your words?
I'll say it's the very sad process that can take place in the life of any family, whether royal or not. What is important here is to do the appropriate rituals of transporting both the body and the soul, as we believe in the African society that when the soul of a person has departed, it has not really departed, but it's always lingering around the body. So it is important to do the appropriate rituals, what we call ulanda ngehlahla, that when the body of a deceased person is being fed wherever it has fallen, it is also important to take the soul along. What I would also like to emphasize is to pass condolences to the royal family, and also to urge the royal family to be in one unit, to be in harmony in whatever that they do.
Yeah, and we're going to come to the last element of your remarks there, Prince Shongwe, about the observance of not just dignity, but to pull together as a unit at a time like this for the Zulu royal family. But before we get there, from what you saw in the early morning, is that in line with what the Zulu customs and traditions would have been if a member of the Zulu royal family passed, and they passed far away from their place where they are, or they ought to have been? Was everything done according to the rituals?
Unfortunately, I haven't witnessed the scene. I'm not at the scene at the moment. Yeah.
All right. No, that's perfectly fine. Let's then talk about what we have seen in the last couple of days, and that is the open divisions among the Zulu royal family. Your interpretation of what we saw thus far, much of the blame being laid at the door of the traditional Prime Minister, Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, being blamed by the siblings of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini Kapeguzulu.
There, I'll say, as the nation, since we are outside of the royal house, the palaces and all that, we will never know exactly why the Prime Minister had got to disclose the way the Queen Regent has passed, to indicate that there was a 2-year-long illness. We will never know exactly who permitted the Prime Minister to comment as such publicly, which I believe, though, it could not be his sole decision to do that. I don't think that he decided single-handedly. I believe that everything is done maybe in a collective manner between the Prime Minister and the King's Council, as well as with the involvement of some of the royal members, the senior royal members. I believe that whatever that the Prime Minister is doing, it's in line with what the collective that constitute the King's Council is what they are also deciding. If it happens that maybe some of the things he uttered, he decided single-handedly, I think he does that from the experience and the knowledge that he has garnered over the years as the Prime Minister of the Zulu nation.
Was that the source of their disagreement, in your view, Babshong?
Not only that, of course. The main dispute now is around the issue of the will, as we have heard over the media, that there's also the dispute about the will. Also, there's an appointment now of court to intervene in this matter. So with regard to that, I still say that we cannot blame the Prime Minister solely, because if he has read the will that some royal members, they are having different views about, they are feeling different about that will. Like, in my view, we cannot solely blame the Prime Minister for doing that, because I believe that the Prime Minister on his own is representing the interest of the deceased king. There's no way that he can work against the interest of the deceased king.
Yeah, as a historian, let's talk about the future of the Zulu nation. Very interesting comments that were made just a few moments ago by our Minister of Social Development, Lindiwe Zulu, who said the marriage of the Zulu king to Queen Mantombi, who is of Swazi royal blood, this union, it brought the two nations together. Your sense of what the future is going to look like now that these two people have now departed?
Of course, since I'm not a seer or a diviner of any kind, it's very tricky to predict the future. But whatever that's going, it will depend on the resolution of the lingering dispute that we see in the Zulu Royal House at the moment. Whoever who will emerge out of that mediation process, if there's going to be a mediation process to take place, I would say it will depend on the views and the character of that individual who will be designated as a new king.
Yeah.
If, for speculation's sake, let's say if the prince that has studied overseas, as we have heard, that he studied international relations, if it happens that it's him who's going to take the reins of leading the Zulu nation, I would say the future looks bright and promising, looking at the fact that he will be a modern, educated king, even though he will still abide by tradition. But he will also be well versed with the intricacies and dynamics of the modern world, of the global world. So I would say in the future, in that sense, it will be promising.
Yeah, I take it you referring to Prince Misizulu Zulu, and that's the person that we understand has been studying overseas for quite a number of years. What do we know of him? I'm not sure if we even have much of a picture of him. Perhaps one does exist, but he's someone that really has been kept away from the public eye.
Yes. Yeah, that also, maybe it could be questionable or problematic to say how familiar he will be with the nation that he will be presiding over, with all the intricacies of the tradition and the ways of governance. But we trust that the royal house and the nation itself will always be there for him if he is the one who's going to emerge out of all the pandemonium that is taking place at the moment. We also trust that whoever who is going to be his prime minister at that time, if maybe the current prime minister will not be the one, we believe that it will be someone who's well versed in the traditions of governing the Zulu nation, the method and style of ruling. We believe that everything should happen out the way that we will expect as AmaZulu and also as all other ethnic nations of Africa.
Yeah, and of course, just to make sure that the viewers understand us exactly what we are talking about, it's pure speculation that Prince Misuzulu may have been, and we're not sure what that will, last will and testament of the late king does say, but speculation has been rife, in particular in the media space, that Prince Misuzulu Zulu is someone who perhaps may have been or is assumed to be the next in line to the throne. But as you mentioned earlier, Prince Shongwe, that this matter, the succession matter, is now also in the courts. If the courts were to rule in favor of the first wife, Queen Sibongile, what would happen? Would that bring a lasting solution to this dispute over who should take over?
Looking at the nature of tradition within the Zulu nation, because in the scenario here that we have with the type of the queens that the deceased king has married, he has brought in the nature of the tradition of succession, whereby the succession is determined by the background of the queens that are involved in his marriage. In this case, the tradition says if a king has been married to one of the royals, automatically that royal princess who has been brought into the nation, automatically she becomes the one who becomes the great wife, the main queen who was supposed to give birth to the successor. So now if that tradition has been deviated and broken, maybe by the outcome of court, if the court proceeding will go on, as maybe it could be, it will mean that there will be that aftertaste, that dissatisfaction amongst those parties who are expecting the tradition to go the way it should be.
Yeah.
It will also really sort of like challenge the status of customary law, that how strong it can be versus the constitution versus the Western law.
Very interesting point indeed. And perhaps what also adds to the intrigue, if you like, is that we know that Queen MantfombiDlaminiZulu, that's the first wife who is in court, she is a commoner. And we know that her son, that's Prince Letuktula Zulu, he sadly passed away in November last year after he was murdered in his flat or in his residence here in Johannesburg. If she were to win in court, who would essentially then take over from her side? Would she, in fact, be the leader of the Zulu nation? Is that something that we might possibly be driving towards?
From where I'm standing, as I say, I'm a member of the nation, but we don't have full access to all what's happening in the royal house, in the palaces. From the view where I am now, I really cannot speculate, I cannot tell. It only the time will tell that if it happens that the litigator wins all the court processes, whom will she or whom will they, she and her party, whom will they bring forth as someone who will lead the Zulu nation? It remains to be seen.
All right, that's where we're going to leave it with you. That is the Prince Shongwe, and talking to us about his understanding of how things could possibly proceed, but also very careful not to speculate much about the succession issues in the Zulu royal family, because